Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's semester has been at least bearable so far. You're listening to CoalitionM. I'm your host, Carson Lopez. Sit back, turn the volume up, and engage with us. So I have a couple of very fine guests with me tonight, and I figured we'd just have an open conversation tonight. I only have them on here for like an hour or so, so not as much time as usual, and I know how bummed my listeners must be about that. So guests, Kadrae and Garret, thank you for being here with me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
For sure. I'm so excited to get in and get you to talk through some things with me. So how you guys doing? Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Kadrae Smith. I'm here at Florida State University. I'm a senior. It's my last semester. Major is in digital media, so similar to what the setup is, radio, TV, film. President of the National Society of Leadership and Success. And to be honest, when it comes to my perspective and experience, when it comes to things in politics, I'm more on the philosophical side. I don't really focus too much on policy as much. I'm more focused on the why, who, and the what I will focus on who, what, when, or why, how, rather than the actual just policy written down. So that's my perspective.
For sure. Okay. What you get?
My name is Garret Bader. I'm a sophomore this year at Florida State University. I'm also a recovery worker for High Plains Mental Health. I'm the president for Psychology Club, and I'm the secretary for National Alliance on Mental Illness Campus Chapter.
Pound it for presidents.
Right?
Oh, I can't share in that piss pound. I'm the vice president.
Okay.
I'm only a vice president.
You're working your way up there.
Right. Yeah. So I guess we can start with the first question right off the bat. What is going on with Colin Kaepernick? Is that how you say his name? Kaepernick?
It's Kaepernick.
Kaepernick. That's right. You said it for me earlier, and I already forgot.
It's all good.
So what I kind of want to talk about with him is he... First of all, why is he taking a knee during the Pledge of Allegiance? Should he, if he shouldn't, if there's no good reason to, why? Or if he is not really doing it right, what is the right way to do it? What do you guys think about that, his situation? Because I know it messes with a lot of people.
Okay. Well, to start off with, why he's doing it, what his main statement is that he's protesting the injustices with minorities in America, specifically people of color who are black. The injustices with police brutality, as well as just economic issues entirely, such as living in the inner city. There's a high disproportionate amount of African Americans live in inner cities, as well as lack of access to public education and lack of access to just the economy as well. African Americans are 2 times less likely to get a job as white Americans who have the same exact skills. They did a study with the name of Tyrone and I think the name of John, and they submitted the same resumes in to jobs, and 50% the white man named John was able to get a job at a much higher, at 50% higher than Tyrone, just because that's how it is. When he does that, he's taken a really big stance because the national anthem is something that people respect a lot. Everyone at a football game stops and puts their hand over their heart. For me personally, he has every right to do it. To be honest, I don't like the first shot. The camera of him, he was actually sitting down. He wasn't kneeling, and they only talked about him sitting down. Then the next time he made a big stance by taking a knee, and that's when everyone was like, "What?" And so, honestly, just some random person. I didn't even know who he was before that, and so that's why I'm like, some random person taking a knee. I won't do it. But at the same time, he has every right to do it. I've been to football games, and there's hundreds of people just walking around during the national anthem. For me, honestly, my dad's a veteran, and he told me specifically, I didn't die, or I didn't go. He didn't die, but he didn't go to war or conflicts for someone to praise him. And when he comes home, he did that for us to have freedom to do what we wanted to do.
Okay.
And so that's my stance on it. I'll open it to Garret.
Yeah. Garret, what do you think about it? Feel free to be as open and honest as possible. What do you think about what Kaepernick is doing and what that means?
Well, I like to think that when it comes to political opinions and the reasons why we do the things that we do is it is a very individual choice, and that is a right that we do have here in America. I think that's a very strong stance to say, but as it comes for showing respect for our country, though, is I feel like the national anthem it's been part of our culture and our heritage for years, and I think you have an excellent point, though. I think that if you want to make a statement, that's a good way of doing so.
Yeah.
But me personally, I think it just kind of plays into our culture, and as we're all raised in that we know, is that there's more meaning to the national anthem than just a song. You know, we don't stand and salute it just because we were taught that. It's our history. You know, we fought wars to gain our rights, and if we know that freedom does have a cost, it doesn't come lightly to anyone. I wouldn't say you can always make, you know, molehills into mountains, but I think people kind of blow it out of proportion.
What are they blowing out of proportion?
Yeah, they turn into a whole thing about race. You know, they like changing it to different biases where it really has nothing to do with it. It's the individual's choice. If someone doesn't feel a certain way about something, they shouldn't be forced to.
Are you talking about kneeling for or standing for the?
Yeah, for the national anthem. Okay. But then again, if you are part of the NFL, National Football League, that is kind of a United States type thing. It's it's an organization that's built throughout our society, and I think if you want to be part of it, though, I think that would be important to show that you're at least respecting those individuals who might have different views as well.
Right. So whenever I hear people starting to talk about Colin Kaepernick, everybody first and foremost says, well, he has a right to do it. And so I don't think there's any nobody's disputing whether or not he has a right to do it. But I know people who absolutely have no respect for anybody who will even hire him from now on because of what they think he's saying, or because of what he is maybe representing to them, which is disrespect of our troops, disrespect of our country. And so I want you guys to kind of help me understand where that may be coming from, assuming that just because he's not participating in our Pledge of Allegiance, does that mean he doesn't like America? Does that mean that there's not something to be proud of being an American? Like, what is wrong here? Because it seems like people are either really for or really against it. You know, and so I kind of want to understand that a little bit more.
Well, to go on that, when it comes to starting off with being his right, he does have the right to do it. Just there's no contest about that. To the extreme of Westboro being able to protest the way they do, to the extreme of someone carrying the neo-Nazi flag, to the extreme of someone or anybody LGBT couple able to hold hands in public or go to any school, not be discriminated against. You have the right to do that. That's what's so great about this country. Regardless if you think it's right or wrong. One thing about Colin Kaepernick specifically, when it comes to him taking a knee at the national anthem, I feel as though when it comes to respecting our troops, that my personal opinion is if you only did it just to get a medal, if you only did it just to be recognized, you did it for a selfish reason, and that's to each your own. Being in the army just to be recognized. I was in the army. Now praise what I've done. I believe that you did that for a selfish reason. And I thank you for serving, because that's something I can't do. That's something that I don't have the will or power to do. So I thank every service member for serving, because you did something that I can't even do, that many of our past presidents weren't even able to do. So that says something to what you did. However, your reason for it shouldn't be for praise, and that's why many veterans did the hashtag Veterans for Kaepernick, because they said we're not doing it for praise. It's his right. We fought for his right to be free, to do what he wants to do, and so we're doing practicing his freedom is something that's great. One thing that Colin Kaepernick did that I think a lot of people are ignoring is his activism right after he did it. He donated $100,000 to a youth program. He started his own youth program in inner cities of Chicago and was able to help hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds of thousands, not yet, but thousands of students attend college that weren't prospected to, helping students increase their grades, making sure that they're going to school, making sure that their schools are funded. Him and, I forget his name, he just won a Grammy, Best Artist of the Year, Chance the Rapper, Chance the Rapper donated $1 million to inner city, as well as Colin Kaepernick. They worked together to do that, and by doing that, they're tackling the issue that they're protesting. when Colin Kaepernick took a knee. He's not just protesting; he actually took action towards solving the issue. I think that right there is something that people need to acknowledge as well. It's not just disrespecting our troops. When you make it only about our troops, I think that you're missing the point. I think what he was doing, he was trying to raise a discussion about the issues with African Americans in our country and how minorities are disproportionately incarcerated or disproportionately receiving less of an education and are disproportionately just not being given equal opportunity in our country. And I think by what he did was to the extreme. However, by doing that, he started the conversation, started the dialogue. But not only starting the dialogue, he took action steps to making a change happen. And I think that needs to be recognized as well. Regardless if you agree with him taking a knee or not, like recognize the full picture, not just the one action.
Okay. So do you think that if people are coming at it from the angle of it's disrespectful to our troops, you think that, am I hearing that you think that kind of comes from a place of maybe a little self-righteousness? It's like, how dare you disrespect me and what I've done for you by not pledging allegiance to us?
To an extent, yes. However, many of the people expressing the outrage aren't servicemen or women. Actually, many servicemen and women agree with what he's doing. They fought for the right for him to do that. That's why the hashtag Veterans for Kaepernick was huge, and a lot of people just ignored it. So,
I guess my take on this would be, if you get into political standings, a lot of it's about how you deliver the message, not so much what the message is, whether it's for a right or wrong purpose. It's easy to understand how people would get offended by the statement or the way he went about it, because, I mean, if you don't show respect for a national anthem, then people could take that as misinterpreted for what he was meaning, because if he meant something, it doesn't mean the same necessarily for everyone else. So I think he could have went about a better way of making a public statement towards it.
Okay.
However,
like how?
Well, I think a lot of it's shown through action.
Yeah.
You can only say so much for words, but if he's giving donations and helping people in need, then that's what really matters, and that's what we should be having throughout our media.
Yeah.
But that's never how it goes. It always gets blown out of proportion, like I mentioned before. And if I understood the initial question, is his motivations behind it?
Well, more like people's reactions to it and why they might have those reactions to it. So I'm more wanting to understand the side of it where people are saying it is definitely disrespect. He shouldn't have done it like this. It disrupts the whole game. It's unnecessary. It's a distraction.
It's because it's such a controversial statement.
Right.
That's where it crosses over to where people are in outrage about it, is because it's like, oh, you're not standing for the national anthem, which, I mean, me personally, I think that you should. I mean, I think that's how you show your respect to our country, and that's also another part of our rights, and it's part of our cultural heritage.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to bring up a little bit better points for it, but
well, I'd be able to chime in on that. Like when you say that bring respect to our country, I feel as though just exercising your freedoms, and what Gal Gadot said. I love this quote that she said when Wonder Woman came out. If you have so much time, do some good. And I think just standing up for a national anthem isn't doing almost anything at all. In my personal opinion, it's not.
Well, that's fair enough. It's not like you're going out there helping the needy.
Yeah, and I feel as though that's what we focused on when it comes to Colin Kaepernick. It's just like all he has to do is stand for the national anthem, or that's all everyone else is doing. But there's so many problems going on in the world right now. We're not doing anything for that when we're at this football game. If we're all talking about supporting our troops right now. In 2014, it was voted down on the bill to provide medical coverage for troops for PTSD as well as veterans. They're right now, when they get off, they don't have anything. They have nothing, and that makes no sense. Why, if they're veterans of our country they served, why aren't they having access to health care? What the stuff they've seen, stuff police officers seeing here, I can't even imagine what people are seeing out there.
Right.
And with gunfire, trauma, your friends die next to you, you need mental care, you need physical care, but that's just not a thing. And the fact that was voted down on, that's something that I feel we need to talk about as well. Like, if we want to support our troops, we want to respect our troops, we need to be doing more than just crossing our hand over our heart. We need to put actual words to action. If we can't do that, then we're just wasting time.
Yeah, and that reminds me of what you said earlier, too, about how the big, probably, motive for what he did is during a football game is because everybody's watching and everybody will have an opinion about it, and so it would be my guess that he did that specifically to get people's attention, not necessarily to flip off the American flag. You know, he wasn't. I would hope I don't think he's trying to do that, but
well, he's never stepped on a flag or anything.
Yeah,
to the extreme, people like, I hate this country so much. Like, I don't hate this country. No. But.
Right. So let's talk about that. So there are people who the line gets weird between protesting and stepping over the line and being a disruption, being destructive, breaking the law. Where is that line for you two?
Line for me is when you inflict violence on another person.
What about property?
Property for me, my philosophy is it's just property. If they come to damage our property, call the cops. Due process will happen. That's what I believe, and I feel as though I'm going to focus on your why you destroy my property over the fact that you did it. Like, I mean, I still believe if someone goes and breaks during the election, I remember after Trump's inauguration, like the most iconic area was a Starbucks that got like a trash can thrown it through, and I'm like, you have no reason to destroy that Starbucks, so why did you do it? Like, why was it so substantial for you to destroy something?
So people and property, when those two things are destroyed, that's where you draw the line? Or you're more okay with property?
Well, I'm more okay with property because property's materialistic. I still believe that whoever destroys a property, regardless of why you did it, you deserve full due process completely. However, I want to focus on why you did it. When you harm another individual, that's a complete choice of anger and rage, and no matter what the circumstance, you should never lay your hands on another human being. That's my philosophy. But
you're not so much bothered by public property, or public or private, I guess, being destroyed.
I'm not so much bothered by it. Like, I mean, I'm still like, stop. But I'm not gonna like the line. I still respect their protests, even though they're destroying it. If that makes sense. Like, I want to hear why they're saying it. Once you harm another human being, you're done. You had no reason to do that. For whatever you believed.
So when does it cross over into a riot?
When a riot comes, when all crime around you due to fighting another individual, usually riots occur when they start fighting the law enforcement as well. Just destroying property, like I'm trying to describe, like a real riot is when it's not just like 100 people destroying their streets. It's when thousands upon thousands of people are going through an area, just destroying anything. They're beating up people. They're doing everything that they can to destroy everything around them. And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. There's been riots just because a hockey game got canceled. There's been a riot just because the homecoming football event in a college town got canceled, and there was a tailgate party, and no one knew what to do, so everyone got drunk and started destroying stuff.
So when you imagine what a riot is, you're imagining full scale. People are beating each other up. There are hundreds of people in the street.
Yeah.
So you don't count
small disturbances. I do not count as a riot.
Okay, so
if
properties, let's say there are 20 people and they're wrecking some property. What is that?
That's 20 people wrecking some property. Now, there's a good example with this. With that Trump rally, protesting Trump's inauguration, there was approximately like 20 or 30 people actually destroying damages. Yet there was over 200 plus people arrested. Yet the entire demonstration had 10,000 plus people there. That small 20 or 30 people, I'm not going to associate with the people who were peacefully protesting, because those 20 or 30 people.
That'd be a hasty generalization.
Yeah, that'd be
the logical fallacy.
Right. Yeah, and so that's what I'm getting at. I don't understand like why those 20 or 30 people will destroy property, but I'm not going to equate that property damage to the entire movement. Now, one thing I'll go towards next is, how did those 10,000 people seeing that react? Were they cheering it on? Were they condoning it? Or were they trying to disassociate themselves from it?
I would actually like to bring up a point, and if you ask where I draw the line is any form of physical, verbal, or social aggression is it's wrong, and it's socially unacceptable, really, because you are causing harm to someone. And when it comes to property specifically, we have to understand that an individual worked to get their property, and if you're destroying your community, then what else are you going to have, really? And I think that's a good question to ask.
Especially after whatever you're trying to solve.
Exactly.
Like, you destroy your entire community to help fix something in your community. Like
it's completely maladaptive.
Yeah.
But what we do see with this kind of behavior, though, is when you have it starts with a small group.
Yeah.
And it always does, even with what we know about World War II and the Nazis. It started as a small movement, and it grew into something huge and violent and horrible. So whenever we see these kind of behaviors, we do have to monitor it very carefully, and we have to handle it delicately. Otherwise, it can explode and turn into a situation that no one can control.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. You have to really, whenever you have the small... anger is something that really drives people, but fear is something else. And that small group can create this type of fear in somebody. If you don't do this horrible else thing will happen, or then they're just going to go along with it.
It'll reinforce itself.
Yeah, without. So, like, there's certain organizations like Antifa or something like that. Like, when they're destroying property, but they say they're doing it because the government won't. So we're going to do it. We're not that the government won't destroy property, but the government won't take action. So we're going to take the action that they should be taking.
Which it makes me laugh, though, is because one of the huge problems is these people want these changes, but where does it all start? It starts with our politicians, our congressmen, women. And if we really want to solve a solution, we have to find people who are going to do what they say they're going to do.
Thank you. Like, really, like, honestly, like, you need to follow people who, if they follow your politics and what they say they're going to do, vote for them, regardless if I think they're right or wrong. Don't vote for people who say they're going to do something and they have no plan of action to do it. Like, that's what I also look towards as well. Regardless if you're right or left. Like, I honestly want to tell you, like, you gotta... I want to see that whatever you say is going to happen.
Well, you got elected for a purpose, and the people that, elected you into that position of power were looking towards you for guidance and to do what you say. And I think that's one thing that we have a flaw about, is we like to take things for face value, and we don't like to actually push people towards.
Another comment on that is, like, when it comes to change in general, like, when you want your politics to change, you need people who actually care about the issues as well. Like, honestly, if you don't care, that's why I don't. That's why I have an issue with many issues with the Trump administration. I don't think they actually care about half the things that they're in charge of, and that's like the Environmental Protection Agency. How is someone who works for ExxonMobil in charge of that when obviously he doesn't care about climate change or climate? Like, why is Betsy DeVos in charge of the Department of Education if she doesn't care? And like, one of those things is just like, if you want to make a change, you have to put people in power that care to make a change, regardless if they're right or they're left. If they care about the fact that there's millions of Americans without access to healthcare, if they care about fixing it so many more people have it, it will get done because they care about it. If you care about the fact that about funding of education, and you want more funding for education, regardless if they're right or the left, they will get it done if they care to make it happen. We have people who don't care about it, and that's an issue.
Why do you think they don't care?
I don't know, honestly.
No, I mean, why? Not why do they not care, but why do you see them as not caring, the Trump administration?
Because they're openly saying, or they're denying, most of the people have no experience in the department that they're holding over. Regardless if ExxonMobil, he was a CEO of a company. That's it, and his company was was destruction of the environment around. So protecting it is just not something he's there for. They created it so that they are the ones regulating their own destruction, and that there's no outside entity doing that. And that's so weird to me that he denies science when he's not a scientist, and that makes no sense.
What do you think about that, Garrett? Do you think the Trump administration cares or does not care about some of the issues that are going on?
It's not so much they don't care. It's they want to dedicate their resources to a different place. However, if we do that, we have to understand resources are limited. Money's limited. You can only put so much money into one federal account. And unfortunately, they saw that the environment should suffer for it, which But then again, I mean, one of the problems that we are seeing is in our federal budget, we don't have enough money to go around for everything. And that's one thing that the Trump administration has been working towards is we need to increase our net worth. We need to bump up America to at least a decent amount of money where we can afford decent health care for our people and we can provide housing for the homeless. And how we go about that and where we put those resources, what's going to matter. I don't agree with them, dismissing the environment because where else are we going to live?
Right.
When it comes to reallocating the money, what you said, like their reallocation of much of it goes towards a border wall as well as military. That's where the funds are directly going towards, or they're going towards certain areas of certain departments that have no actual impact. Betsy DeVos, how she's reallocating money towards
I can
private
see
schools
that,
and charter schools.
I feel that, national security is one of our top priorities, definitely, especially with the circumstances that we're in internationally. I don't know if we're helping it or making it worse by doing so, but we have to make sure that the people here in our country are safe. Our allies are safe, and if anything was to ever come up, we should be prepared. For the wall, I mean, that goes into immigration. So far, I do agree with it, but what we need to do is we need to resolve the problem of immigration from the start. We need to make it more affordable so these individuals who want to come to our country aren't paying thousands of dollars to get citizenship. It should be more affordable.
On a 5+ year waiting list.
Yeah, you're waiting for 10 years to become a citizen. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And these people are leaving bad circumstances to come here for better, but then you're expecting only the rich people to come here? That was not what we intended for this country.
Right. So what comes first, do you think? The wall or the immigration reform? Status reform and what you're just talking about?
I would say simultaneously, honestly. I think that you would have to dedicate resources, because if you build a wall but you make it more affordable, then it's not going to be such an issue getting into our country legally with the right paperwork and being able to get citizenship, within, say, 10 years, 7 years, depends on how quickly you reintegrate to our society.
Okay, so
would the wall then be efficient at all if we change the issue, which making it more affordable and a more welcoming path to citizenship? Why do we then need a wall?
Because if you can get into a country legally, you should do that. If you have a better opportunity to get into a country legally, then it'll be better to do that than come here illegally and end up in a lot of the circumstances that some of these families are here. Is now they're saying they're trying to deport children who had no control over where they landed, but now they're still saying you're here illegally, even though you've been raised as an American citizen, basically.
So I think the question is then, since you think both should happen at the same time, the wall and the reform, I guess the question is, why both?
Why both?
Yeah, so if it's made easier for people to come into this country, why would we still need to put up that extra measure of a literal wall that keeps people out, I think is the question. Because you would think you wouldn't need that, because it wouldn't be such a problem anymore, because people would find it easier.
You can give someone, you have an option here and you have an option here. Mm-hmm. Option A, you get immediate results. Option B, you might have to wait a little bit, but then it rewards you later on.
Okay.
And so by doing so, if you still build the wall, but then you make it easier to get into a country, you're not breaking any of our laws. And they can't say that you broke any laws if you're coming in legally. The law would just be there for simply making sure that people abide by, our legal standpoint on it, but you should still be able to come into the country on an easier,
I think,
easier
honestly,
way.
When it comes to the law of coming over to the U.S. and being essentially a citizen here, I think being an illegal immigrant, honestly, the stigma we put on it as the only punishment is deportation, I think that's a negative stigma that we need to get rid of, because that's not a punishment. I don't think that's an effective punishment to get any quality results out of. We want immigrants. Immigrants built this country. Immigrants are what's helping their country. Right now, what they do when they work is they're paying taxes. They're paying taxes to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, things that might disappear later on because there's not enough actual Americans to put into that system. So when they work here, they pay for that. That's fine. My idea with this whole thing about Dreamers and DACA, to go on that, what we call deporting children, because that I just feel like that's a negative thing that we shouldn't even focus on, is that when they're over here, they broke the law. So they pay more. They can pay more in taxes. They have to be in a probational period. They have to be, if they commit a crime, they're done. However, they're already not going to do that because 91% of them work and 99% of them have not committed a crime.
Well, it depends on how long they've been in this country and their economic standpoint. Because if you're able to get your citizenship with the time that you've been in here and you had the opportunity to, along with the finances, then why wouldn't you? Besides getting,
and it's hard. It's not.
Well, a lot of things are hard, but if you look at a lot of the culture heritage around here, especially in Kansas, a lot of us are Volgan Germans, and if we know anything about the immigration of them, is like specifically with my family, is we left Volga Germany because of political rivalry. There's anti-Semitic views that went around, and my family left this country, but we still came here legally. It was different circumstances, but it's easily relatable to why people still come to this country.
I honestly think that's what their circumstance is. It's not because they're lazy, which is why they're not getting it. If it was a welcoming pass, if it didn't cost thousands of dollars to go through each step of the process, as well as the long waiting period, then understand that it would. But you have an entire life going on. You are raising your kids. You have to work to pay for them. You have to make sure they're in school. There's a lot of other things.
Which brings me back to my original point, is why it should be more affordable and easier to get, because that would solve the majority of it, because it is inaccessible to a lot of these individuals. You know?
And I think that I want to put America on a pedestal. I really do. But to be honest, putting us on a pedestal as being one of the greats, in my opinion, makes us not great, because we don't need to flaunt how great we are.
Well, we don't need a pat on our back every inch
we
of the
don't
way.
need that. Other countries are like, you guys are the best country in the world. They will describe that to us when they were talking about this election. And like, I didn't know that other people thought that way. I thought everywhere else is cool. And so when other people look at us, like, we're not flaunting it, but now we always feel like we have to flaunt it, and it's like that's with our policy, and I just don't agree with that. I honestly don't. Like, I don't need a pat on my back for being an American. I'm just like, I'm here, cool.
Mm-hmm. So I guess a couple of questions I would have so far would be, so what would be the penalty for being here illegally? And once we make it, if we are going to take this first step of, well, first we have to make it affordable, we have to make it easier for these people. Mm-hmm. It seems like a vicious cycle of how are we ever going to get that done in the first place? Because it seems like all these other distractions with the wall and DACA, and it seems like all these other things are popping up, but we're forgetting the problem is that people are not getting in here safely, first of all, and legally. Mm-hmm. And I'm so conflicted about it, because I don't think it's necessarily fair for people to be here illegally while other people are waiting all these years to get here legally. And so I understand the outrage with that.
There is outrage by it.
But the whole, and I'm not saying either of you two think this, but the whole theme of they shouldn't be allowed to come here, go back where you came from, all this, like, it seems like such an odd dichotomy, because I don't necessarily want these people to be deported upon sight, but I also want them to be here legally so that they don't have these problems.
Yeah.
So where do we even start with that?
You asked the question about the penalties and what happens. Well,
right.
When we talk about being undocumented, that's actually a very slightly false statement, because they are documented. They're just, where are they documented at? Like, at what level? Kids still go to school. They still go to public schools. They can even go to private schools. They still work. Like, that their parents and them are documented to some extent. Many of them did 60% come over here for on work visas, but they just overstay. And so,
is that fair?
Is that fair? I don't think it's fair at all, honestly. But here's my punishment: sending you back to your home country, to where you might not even have any resources down there to even come back legally.
Right. So what do we do? What do we do with these people?
Well, what we do is we get people in power who care to fix this,
right?
Fix it, not just punish it. Like, we need to fix the entire solution. And one thing we have is a more welcoming path to citizenship. If they were caught, or if they're now being processed as they have to go through the steps of the citizenship, is I'm just throwing this out there. So recently there's been videos of a family specifically being targeted by ICE. They were literally targeting them one by one. The oldest daughters, then the sons, and then now the parents. That's just how it is. Obama administration really did push deportation, and so that is one of the outcomes, that they target families. And one thing with that is, I'm not saying that you should just deport them because they don't have any resources back home to come back here. Once they get processed into a system by ICE, then they in that system where they can't break any laws, don't get pulled over. Then now you also have to make sure you're maintaining work, because now you need to pay extra taxes. And then now at this time you have to take your citizenship test. And if you don't pass it, then you go home. Like, you are now forced into this process of a penalty because you didn't do what you were supposed to do in the beginning. And I think that would make more sense to create a process or system that now forces them to get it, or forces them to get, like, if they say they can't pass the test within that a lot of time frame, well, now they were given 6, 10, 20 plus years to do it, and they chose not to. Now leave. Bye.
Garrett, what do you think about his penalty solution?
When it comes to like penalties for being a legal immigrant, I don't think it's so much, that you should be deported, but we should definitely look for the felons, the individuals who have come here and they've committed crimes of significant proportion. I think that would be grounds for deportation. Yes, you're talking vandalism, robbery, even murder.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of for me, that's where that boundary very much. But for petty crimes, speeding, I mean, you should see me going to classes.
Honestly, yeah. Like, crimes that really aren't, like, there's a penalty to them, but there's not.
Yeah, and for like the family specifically here that, they came over here, plus 18, plus 20 years ago. The problem that we're seeing is a lot of these kids who are brought up in this culture, they don't identify as national Mexicans. They would identify more as American citizens. And what we need to understand is you can't reintegrate someone back into a culture they don't belong in. These people they're just as American as you or I. And the important thing is, especially with their children, though, is for these individuals who came over here not speaking English, is their kids. They have to translate. How else are these individuals supposed to live their lives and actually live a fulfilling life of worth, value, and a decent economic standpoint? How are you supposed to do that when they take away your resources? And I think that's a big burden, and that's probably an opportunity that we're missing, is we're shutting this down for people. So we need to be targeting the people breaking the laws, the illegal immigrants who are breaking the law specifically, and making it easier for those who are just trying to live a normal life, be able to get their own citizenship.
So it's more of a measure of who's being good, quote unquote. So if
not so much being good, but who's integrating to our society.
Okay.
Because if you come over here with the standpoint that I'm nationally Mexican, I don't belong in this country, this isn't my home, so I'm going to pillage it out of it.
I honestly, there's so few of those that, like, it's okay.
Well, we can't stereotype,
it's okay to, like, what you're saying, go after fellows. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. If we don't, that would just crazy. There's no reason for us not to do that. However, we go after regular felons of every race and culture in this country. So, like,
that's true.
It's completely fine. I don't want necessarily to create this task force to find felons that are Mexican American.
Well, a lot of them would already be in our justice system.
For the crimes they committed.
So there would have been documentation, but it's actually handling that the way it needs to change.
Yeah. And so
there's a lot to unpack with DACA and what's going on right now.
Yes.
What do you guys understand about what's going on with that right now, with the Trump administration and what's happening with the DACA recipients' rights? What do you understand about that? What's going on right now?
Well, the rights of the Germans, I think a lot of people have it they have it skewed because they believe that they're getting benefits and stuff like federal Pell Grants, student loans. They're not
DACA recipients.
Yeah, they're not getting any of that. Actually, they're not able to get any of that. They're ineligible for it, and so I believe that we need to understand that here's what Dreamers get. They get the opportunity to get the same education as we are and to stay here throughout that education.
Okay.
Basically sums it up.
Right.
To
so
achieve.
what's going on right now with the Trump administration? What has Trump said about it? What's going on?
They wanted Obama's order on creating DACA. They want to get rid of it. Now, Trump did this 6 months plan for the Congress to come up with a different plan. So Congress can now fix it. However, honestly, I think it should have been left alone, and Congress should have fixed it when it first came out. That's my personal opinion. There's no reason for them not to have fixed this when it first came out. They just kind of left it alone. However, the option of getting rid of it instead is something I don't agree with.
Okay.
So I think that's 800,000 Americans, many students on this campus at Fort Hays State University, that would actually be affected directly, if not deported. I just don't agree with that. They're not an issue. They're not a problem. Virtually 100% of DACA recipients have zero criminal record. So that's saying something. 91% of them work.
Right. So
I just don't know like where all this is coming from. Like, why do we have to? Why are they even an issue right now?
Right.
We have homeless people in the street. We're about to go to war with North Korea. Why are we talking about DACA? That's what I'm getting at.
So the way it was explained to me, what's going on right now, is that presidents have, from back to when Ronald Reagan in the 80s was trying to grant amnesty to all of these illegal immigrants.
Yes.
But that wasn't his job because he was the president. It's up to Congress to create this citizenship for them. So he couldn't do it. So then George W. Bush tried doing it, but that wasn't his job. Congress had to do it, so nothing was done. And then we had Obama, who it wasn't his job, but he surpassed Congress anyway and created the DACA, this executive order that upset people because it was unconstitutional, because it is not his job to grant these people, kids, I guess at the time, citizenship in that way. So that's what upset people, is because it wasn't his job. Even though he may have been noble in what he was trying to do, Congress should have been the ones to do it. And so how this situation was explained to me is that the Trump administration has not said, we want to kick him out. They've said to Congress, you have 6 months to fix this when you had however many years since the 80s to do this. You get 6 months right now to fix it, or I will revisit the issue.
He did say, like, before he even made that announcement, that he was looking at repealing Obama's plan on DACA, like repealing.
Okay.
He did make those direct statements. That's why everyone was freaked out about.
Okay.
But
did he say repealing it as in take it completely away, or repealing it as in reforming it in some way?
He didn't specify.
Well,
okay.
Here's my opinion on it, is we're leaving this to an individual to decide. If Congress had multiple opportunities to represent the people that elected them, and they still haven't done it yet, then there's obviously a problem there with that.
Right. So that's what I'm seeing.
We're having a president choose a decision for how many people?
And the thing is, it's never been the president's job. And so I'm not seeing Trump as the guy who wants to kick all these kids out. I'm seeing Trump as the guy at the moment who's saying, Congress, you need to do your job.
And that's what I actually agree with that. I'm like, okay, he's giving them 6 months. I'm like, you guys should have this done in a day.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Exactly. And I don't understand why it's taken them so long.
Yeah.
And so I don't like Trump, but in this moment, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing that he's done anything wrong at this point, because it's not, and he hasn't said we're going to kick them out.
Yeah.
From what I'm getting, as the farthest he's gone is to say, I'm going to revisit the issue. I'm going to repeal it, whatever. I'm going to do something to it if you don't.
Yeah.
And
so
I hope he doesn't, because that's still not his job.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of glad that he's kicking them a little bit in the butt and saying, you have 6 months to do something you should have done 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, but that's not what we're hearing. We're hearing Trump wants to kick these kids out of the country.
Yeah, and I think the issue that people are raising, like, why are we focused on DACA right now? And I completely understand, like, it just makes no sense. Like, with all these international foreign issues going on, why is the president so concerned about DACA?
Well, I think it comes from because Trump's platform is to eradicate whatever Obama did. So, so I think that comes with this is like this came up because this was an executive order of the president before him, who was Obama, and so it makes sense to me why this is coming up, just because right now our country is in the midst of hopefully doing something about immigration reform, and so it makes sense to me that this is coming up because this is important, and this was an executive order that may not have been done if Congress had just done what they were supposed to do and make a decision. What do you think, Garrett?
Where we really have to be careful about is we have to distinguish biases in media. And that's one of the huge things that we are seeing right now is you read this paper and it says this and this one that says this. What we need to do is we need to throw it all out the window. It doesn't matter. It's just getting in the way. Everyone has their own opinion on it, but I mean, you can tell the same story 7 different ways, but still not do anything about it. So
I think having random forums of, like, this is great for the platform it's on, but putting random people who are not credible on either side to debates, it makes no sense as if, like, those are 2 people who have the only opinions in the world. And, like...
What do you mean?
Like CNN and Fox News, how they'll have a radical on the right and a radical on the left, and like these people actually have no credibility towards the actual issue at hand.
That's really entertaining.
Why are it's so entertaining, and it's just like why there's just one extremist saying, not saying he's a white supremacist, but throwing in subliminal messages, and the other person saying, "How dare all white people exist?" Like. That makes no. These 2 people need to stop talking. Right. I don't care about what those 2 people think. I want to know what the people think.
Exactly.
And I think we need. That's what. So like, don't think I was talking about this. Like, this is we're the people. Right. Those are 2.
We gotta say here.
Those are 2 wackadoodles with a law degree that shouldn't have gotten a law degree. That's all it is. Like
this. Yeah. This is probably the first time I have actually done a double take in the media, because I always hear all these conspiracy theories from people like the media's trying to turn us against each other, and up until now I was like, no, I don't think so, but now I'm like, that's what it seems like.
I feel like it just sells. That's
absolutely, yeah. And that's what I'm seeing.
About turning us against each other. I mean, that's just the product of it, but it's about the money that comes in. During Trump's election, he got CNN $2 billion extra dollars for the annual fiscal year. And that's just how much money they were making. So
I don't like that. And I have a lot of liberal friends on social media who and I was too, freaking out because I thought they were going to kick all these kids out. Yeah. And then it was actually explained to me, and I immediately calmed down, and I was immediately like, oh, I see where the actual problem is. Yeah. And I'm afraid that's not happening enough. People are not understanding what's actually going on.
We're getting inaccurate information.
Right. And so now I think I've committed to reading exact statements for what they are and not listen.
I don't read just the headline. You read the statement of where the headline came from, and then you're like, it really wasn't that big of a deal, or it was like, yeah, they're right. Like,
and so I think it's kind of an epidemic right now. Is that people will the headlines, the social media, the pop-ups, the stuff that clickbait and stuff like that, and it's honestly probably the most divisive thing in our country right now, and that's terrifying because that's where that's where we trust these people to give us information and to we shouldn't trust them to tell us how to think, but
instead of having someone who's a diehard Trump supporter, and if everything he says, breathes, or dresses, they're gonna love it. That's not an individual who I want just giving me the commentary on how our country's going.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want that on any side. I wouldn't want.
Let's say you get biases in there and distortion.
That's just what we're getting.
Right.
To an extreme that just like where is the unbiased source? Or just a regular individual or a person that can tell me what they're thinking, because I think a lot of people actually they haven't developed their own opinions on certain things. They haven't been able to do critical thinking on many issues that are on the political platform. Religious rights, women's rights, abortion, things like that. Like a lot of people haven't been able to fully think about their own what they would think about it. They just go with what's being said.
Yeah.
Where we went wrong with all that is people stop asking questions and holding others accountable for what they promise. You know, as people are asking who, what, when, where, how, why, how do we solve this, they've stopped asking questions and they just hand it over to someone to make the decision for them.
It's weird how we have a lot of these town halls going on currently, and with people protesting at them, like shouting at the person. All of you guys voted, and I can tell a lot of you guys voted for this person. I'm pretty positive a lot of you guys voted for this person. Yet you're mad about what they're doing. The only thing that, and like many of those happened, was they were actually doing what they were saying. They were going to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
And all of a sudden,
a lot of you guys,
what?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't know I had Obamacare. I thought I had the Affordable Care Act. Same thing. And I think a lot of people just weren't thinking that it was actually going to happen. They were focused on, well, he's going to do this and that, and it's like that was their number one thing.
They told you from the start.
So like when people, you have to formulate your own opinion on something, because if you just go with the flow, you're not going to understand. It's like a lot of people on the right, they were like, yeah, I'm appeal the Affordable Care Act. Then they're like, no, wait, that actually affects me, but it's almost too late for you to do anything about it. So you have to like really be able to form your own opinion, because if you can't, you're just going to be
Sheep.
Yeah.
It's a sheep mentality.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's really scary. And I hopefully, with things like this in the show, and I'm hoping to kind of drag people out of that, because it's obviously doing nothing for us.
Yeah.
If anything at all, it's bad. So last question before we go, I want to know
Already?
from you two. I know. I'm sorry.
Garrett's
I will have you
so-
on again. I will have you both on again, and we will
Yay.
do it for longer. I want to know, as students and as workers, as citizens who vote and contribute to this society, what issues are most important to you two individually? Politically or
I'll let you go
whatever.
first.
Where do I start? I mean, if we really prioritize it, education definitely needs to be more affordable. We need to start here in our own community and our own state before we can actually look at it on a national scale, because I think we get really caught up with everything. But we have to look at where we are economically. And, you know, I would say specifically with my job, is I work with a lot of individuals and they don't have the resources that they need, and it's actually dwindling. Yeah, but it's dwindling everywhere, though. It's even in our education systems. Small towns who are able to hold their own schools and their own communities are slowly being drained of all their money, and we're all having to go to different schools.
And many of that is attributed to like the economy itself. Like,
Exactly.
If we focus on one industry, many towns are focused on coal, or they were focused on natural gas. Well, now that we're shifting away from that, they have almost nothing.
Yeah, we're working towards our own demise, but I think that it would definitely start with the finances. We need to figure out a way to, which, I mean, Trump says, oh, let's start all these, businesses back up, all these factories, let's bring industry, but let's neglect the environment. You know, we're not finding this happy medium saying that we need standards, we need to be able to control ourselves, but make progress at the same time. So I would definitely say prioritizing, we need to work on increasing our net worth.
Okay, thank you, Garrett.
For me, my priority is F2. It's education. I believe funding of education through K through 12, as well as through higher education. I just feel as though when people are educated, they're able to make a more informed decision.
Absolutely.
That's just facts throughout. It's cited everywhere. There's a lot of education reform that needs to happen. Not just the funding of it, but how it's structured overall as a whole. Kids going to school from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and they're getting yelled at because they have sports and extracurriculars afterwards that they're endorsed, that they're told that they have to do, and then they only maybe have 2 or 3 hours to like do homework, and then they're always tired and exhausted. And like, no crap. Like, there's a lot of things with their health that's contributing to mental health. Why does everyone in college right now have anxiety/depression? It's because life is freaking hard and we're being demanded a lot mentally. Maybe not as much physically, but a lot mentally. And so that would tackle the mental health issue that we're going through. But my number one is the leadership that we have. And that's not Trump administration. That's on the local level as well.
Thank you.
Your local elections are the most important elections for you. You need to pay attention to who you're electing. You need to know what they're saying. You need to know who's running. It's not about who has a D or an R by their name. It's more important than that. Because there's a lot of Democrats who I do not like.
Same.
Especially there's some Republicans I'm like, like I just feel as though you need to change a few things and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like that's where it is, and we need to know who's running, but we also need people who care. And if they don't care, if they're just in it for the money on both sides, we have issues, and we need to address those issues directly.
Well, I have the chance. I want to throw this in there too, but books.
Sure, go ahead.
Books need to be like way more affordable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I think that goes
Seriously.
into education funding and reform, hopefully, financing.
It's literally it's
Say
a
a book.
multi-million-dollar industry
Yeah.
of books for college students. How is that a thing? Like honestly,
Yeah.
like we're the product, and we're like feeding into something that we can hardly pay back after.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So does this mean that I can count on you two to vote in the upcoming elections in 2018?
I don't know where I'll be, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to vote in Kansas. That's my only issue.
Okay.
I imagine I'm not going anywhere, so probably.
Good. Good.
Like that's the only issue. Like
Well, but wherever you are,
yeah,
you know, I mean,
I'll mail in a ballot. So
for sure. Good. I cannot stress enough how important it is to people, especially our age, especially students, especially millennials. It's you have to get out there. You have to get up and do something. So thank you very much for joining me tonight,
Yeah,
gentlemen.
thanks for having
It
me.
was a pleasure.
Wow, did we say that?
Yeah, we did.
I can't wait to have you guys on again, and we'll have a longer talk, and we'll talk about more issues more in depth.
Yeah.
This was Coalition M signing off. Thank you so much for listening. Give us a shout out. Go look me up on Facebook, Coalition M. Have a good night. Have a good semester.